Hey class, welcome to week 7 of the Structure of Information course. Hope everybody is doing well. Today we're going to be talking about misinformation and fake news. Okay, and just start the slides right here. So what exactly is the term fake news? We've talked about it all semester, but we haven't really gotten into it. And in recent years, since 2015, 2016 election of Donald Trump, fake news has been aligned with him. He attacks and name calls outlets whose coverage he doesn't agree with. At its essence, fake news is just news that is either false by word of mouth or printed. So Donald Trump kind of brought up this term fake news, although it's always existed throughout history. CNN, I forgot what in the movie they called it something network. And it's crazy because now, as the Republicans kind of move away from the Trump era, he's critical of Fox News because they don't side with him. Here's this thing. This is his app, Truth Social. We'll talk about it later in the class. And here's what he said about Fox and Friends. He also said that another message he wrote that if CNN were to become conservative, they could become the biggest network ever and draw the conservative base. Come over to his side, he said. So since the beginning of the printing press, fake news was around. In the 1977, in the 1755 Lisbon earthquake, the church and your authorities blamed the natural disaster on sinners, on divine retribution. There was a whole bunch of pamphlets in Portugal claiming that survivors saw an apparition of the Virgin Mary. And this framed Voltaire to attack religious explanations of natural events and made Voltaire into an activist against fake religious news sites. So people have always used hatred and the other to sort of galvanize fake news. Here's something during the American Revolution. Ben Franklin himself concocted propaganda stories about murderers scalping Indians, working in league with British King George III. He wanted to gain support from Americans in different colonies and stuff. They published fake propaganda stories, thousands of foreign soldiers to slaughter the American patriots, and turn the tide of war to get people to enlist and cause a revolutionary idea. The whole thing with fake news is that it draws emotion. It draws something that stirs up people inside and it gets them to act or feel aggressive or something. As newspapers kind of progressed throughout history, in the early 19th century, sensationalism, which had scoops and exposés, did a lot of fake news to increase circulation. Again, think about it as clicks back in the day when you had actual newspapers. All this fake news draws up so many clicks, they would also sell a lot of newspapers. Give me 1 second. Let's this thing open up here. Basically, in the New York Sun. So now there's only like a couple daily newspapers in New York, but like in the 1800s, early 1900s, there was like 10 of them. And they had this story of the Great Moon Hoax, which basically said, I don't know why this isn't opening. Sorry about that, guys. The Great Moon Hoax basically said some guy had this advanced telescope and he could look at the moon and he saw flying bats. He saw earthquakes of lava, almost like a hellish scene. This is the drawing of what he supposedly saw on the moon. If you're interested more in fake news, you can definitely read this article and get some more background about it, about the history of fake news. 1835, he pointed a telescope from South Africa. So this caused a sensation. People flocked to the Sun's office. Circulation shot up from 8,000 to 19,000, overtaking the Times of London, the best-selling newspaper of the day. Was this from New York? Yeah, the New York Sun. Sorry, guys. It's a little early. In 1844, The anti-Catholic newspapers in Philadelphia falsely claimed that Irishmen were stealing babies from public schools, which led to violent riots and attacks on Catholic churches. Remember that movie where the guy who creates fake news, the political operative in the suit, says this is going to have some truly horrible negative consequences, but we don't really care. Those things can happen. You have a lot of these situations here. And it's interesting to see how the tides of immigration turn. Back in this age, the Irish were the new immigrants, sort of like how the Central Americans and the Hispanics are the immigrants now and get all this type of blame and things like that. During the Gilded Age, yellow journalism flourished using fake interviews. Sorry, let me move my video here so I can see where it says false experts and bogus stories to spark sympathy and rage as desired. Remember, sympathy and rage. Remember, think about all the fake news articles we're going to talk about in this class, and think about the rage. The video also mentions a lot of fake news is spurred by hate. Poulter's New York World published exaggerated crime dramas to sell papers. In the 1890s, William Randolph Hearst, who owned a ton of papers and his family still owns papers and magazines, used exaggeration to spark the Spanish-American War. He sent somebody down to Havana, and they said, there's no war here. There's nothing going on. I don't find anything. He wanted to drum up a war. And Hearst was the inspiration. If you saw the movie Citizen Kane, he was supposedly the main character. And he famously responded to the reporter in Havana, "You furnish the pictures, I'll furnish the war." He published fake drawings of Cuban officials strip searching American women, and he got his war. It drawed up fervor, drawed up rage, it drawed up this something inside of you. And it got people to react. People outcry, they call the politicians, and things happen. But eventually, like sort of in the 1950s, these types of sensationalist papers folded and gave way to trusted daily newspapers. These are newspapers that upheld the standards of journalism. You didn't have to do homework like we have to do now and decide if it was real. It just was. And journalists have a code of ethics they need to follow. There's a lot of things if you make up things. I was always a man on the street reporter, right? Something happens and I have to run over there and talk to people. If I even spelled somebody's name wrong, if I didn't write their number, there was a lot. My editors were always concerned that's a fake interview, and it does happen once in a while. You have these reporters who try to get push their way up, and it comes out later. So even if I wrote a letter name, they couldn't find that name. Hey, we can't find this person. That goes through not only from I'm done to the copy editors to the main editors. They will look up those people. Random person in the street, they can't find it, they're not going to publish it. You're going to lose even a little bit of credibility. I remember I did some work with the New York Times and people loved my story, but I spelled the main guy's name wrong, and I think the street was all confusing, and they just like looked down on me because they were like, oh, how could you have two typos in your story? It's very rigorous. It's not there's no, like I said before, there's no conspiracy behind the doors to lie to you guys at mainstream newspapers and news outlets. But here's the thing, sometimes newspapers do get it wrong. This is very important. Think about all the things that I told you guys, the limitations that we have, time limits, craziness going on at the scene, editors, all the things that happen. Things change. Things are constantly changing. So as we've talked about this semester, there are limitations. When news does get it wrong, they put out corrections and apologies. So before I show you that funny article about some of the interesting corrections, this might be considered misinformation. This is not disinformation. Disinformation is purposely a lie. Misinformation, there might not be the intent to lie, but mostly it's an error. It's like the police put out the wrong address, or the press release was wrong, or the caption said the wrong thing. And let's go to this funny article here. These are actual New York Times. New York Times has the most rigorous corrections. They go back all the time, and the readers are meticulous, and they email them. So an article Monday about Jack Robinson and Kristen Linsmith, two college students with Asperger syndrome, who are navigating the perils of an intimate relationship misidentified the character from the animated children's TV show My Little Pony that Mrs. Linsmith, and she said she visualized to cheer herself up. It is Twilight Sparkle, the nerdy intellectual, not Fluttershy, the kind animal lover. He is not a he is a golden retriever, not a Labrador retriever. So I'll just scroll through this. You guys can read them. Pause this video if you must. Look up the headline. So Kermit is made from fleece, not felt. So a lot of funny things here, but they do correct all the time. Sometimes, like I showed you, they put editorial things on top. Let's see. Let's go back. All right, there are individual journalists that lie and make things up. This is the huge, huge problem. Let me see what this his name is Jason Blair. Yeah, so Jason Blair was a reporter for the New York Times. Mind you, it's so hard to get to the New York Times to begin with, especially before the digital age where they were hiring all these like tech or like breaking news reporters reporting from the computer. It was super hard. He got in, they had the story about the DC sniper, and he lied about all his stories. When they went back to look, he was stealing things and he was making up sources. They try to call, they said, oh, where's your notes? Give me your reporters always keep their notes, their sketch pads with their phone numbers and the names, because there's audits all the time. It's funny, when I worked in newsrooms, you'll see people reporters' desk like stacked, all the reporters' desks stacked all the way high, full of things, just in case things go back all the way. And you're told never throw anything away because there's audits. And he lied. He wanted to get ahead. These fields are super competitive, and that's the end of your career once you lie. You see it once in a while. This person tried to lie about street interviews are copied. If you're a journalist, if you're a young journalist, it's definitely not worth it, because once your name gets out there, that's it. Remember this exercise where we had to Google ourselves. If that comes up, or journalism is a very niche field, the word will get around, so it's not worth it. But verified news that uphold ethical standards is not fake. Sometimes it is clickbaity. Sometimes it's leaning to one side or the other, but it's not fake. There's no general conspiracy to mislead the public. So here are other fake news examples. Here's something from 1944. It's called Private Snafu. It was made by, I think it was made by Disney. No, the guy who created Dr. Seuss. Let me turn up the volume here for you guys.
It was a bright sunny day with the air fresh and clean. Not a rumor was stirring, except in the latrine.
Hiya, Snafu. What's new?
Oh, nothing much. Nice day.
Nice day for a bombing.
Yeah, nice bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather.
Sounds harmless enough. Innocent stuff. But let's take a look in and find out what's cooking.
Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Just between you and me, pal, I hear we're in for a bombing.
The hot air is blowing. A rumor is growing.
I don't know if I said this already, but this is an actual video that the U.S. government created to warn soldiers about the spread of fake news.
Did you hear about the terrible bombing last night? Well, I heard it on good authority.
All right, in time, I'm gonna just pause it here.
Balloon juice. It's foamy,
let's see a little more.
but it makes nice bologna. That's right. Exaggerated.
Okay, so you guys can Google and watch the rest of this so we can move on. Other fake news examples. The Inquirer. Where's the Bat Boy? The famous Bat Boy one. Oh, this is not the Inquirer, but it's like a similar one. I remember this when I was a child, and I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was asked like, but why that boy got those ears? Of course, this is fake. And they just drum up gossip and things like that. So this one says that Hillary Clinton fought an alien over Bill Clinton. Okay. But we kind of knew better, you know. We kind of know better when it was printed on this that it was fake. Like, come on, that's garbage. That's trash. Um, during the World War II, the Nazis said, and this is a common throughout history myth, fake news, lie, that Jewish people were drinking child's blood. It's a common thing throughout history, not only in that time, but they brought it up back then. So, in quick recap, fake news has always existed, but due to the internet, it spread faster than ever, and it's called into question the sourcing. Like, oh, if back in the day you only had channel 2, 4, and 5, and only a few newspapers, it was easy to decipher that they had standards of quality and to know that those things at the supermarket were BS. So the internet has broken the distinction between a real news site and a fake one. And if you aren't careful, you might not even recognize the difference. So forget about those bogus things on Instagram and Facebook. They're being very tricky. So the Denver Guardian was a fake news site that replicated the real one, the Denver Post. Online, it can reach an audience as big as the Post. The Baltimore Gazette was a defunct city paper, an actual newspaper, but was relaunched as a fake news site. You have this fake news site called USA Politics Today, and it plays on the actual USA Today newspaper. You got to be careful with the names. There's always like a little twist in them. They kind of combine. Another big sign that the site you're on is bogus. Look at the ending .co, .za, or something like that. Completely fake. But it is getting super harder to decide, and people in politics and people who want to make money are using these type of things because these, as we'll see in like a few slides, these sites, these articles make tons of money online. And there's a new thing that's drawing a lot of condemnation because it's called pink slime news sites. They look just like, see, the Bridgeport Times. They kind of play on a newspaper that might exist. It sounds like it might exist. They look super real, but an examination by the Columbia Journalism Review found that they were super conservative and trying to push conservative ideals, launched just before the 2020 election. 450 news sites. It increased threefold over 2020 to 1,200 sites. That's already a lot of sites. And for the average, not the average person, but to somebody maybe a little older, somebody who's not really paying attention, it can look real. They can believe what's going on there. It's not this. The thing with this is it's not so fake that it's blatant for a more educated person, or a person who's more aware of these things. It just it plays on looking so real. You should always Google the paper of the name if it looks bogus or something like that. So one of the most important aspects about this is the money involved. So not only the money that the people make, but the money it costs. So going back in time, remember we had a few newspapers. It was hard to make fake news. Yes, people would pass out pamphlets, but think about how much money it costs to run a news organization. You have editors, reporters, offices, the printing press, TV, radio stations, ad people, logistics, vehicles, equipment. It's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, to run a news organization. Now, anybody at home can make a fake news site on their laptop and post to Facebook and make money. So the requirement for all this startup capital to create a news outlet, it going away at the beginning seemed like such a good thing, right? I could start a blog and cover something that nobody's covering, especially as the closure of newspapers occurred and communities were being left out. And yes, there's a lot of good news outlets that are covering holes left by the declining newspaper industry. But for the most part, it's not good. It's just people creating fake news so fast and easily and just a bunch of lies. This can be super dangerous, especially coupled with Facebook's algorithms, which prioritize engagement. Remember, the rage, the feeling of hatred that people click more often. In the study of fake news sites, it found that more people were to share and engage with fake news because it elicited an emotion in them. It brought a more emotional response from them. All right. So before we get more into the money, well, this deals with the money. We're going to talk about somebody mentioned in that movie that you guys watched, Alex Jones and InfoWars. So Alex Jones started in, I forgot what city. He was a small radio person just spewing lies. And like I said, this has happened through history. I forgot during the gilded, not the gilded, I would say during the radio age. Remember when there was just radio, from radio, TV, and then internet. There was an Alex Jones version of this on the radio. I forgot what his name was. His father something, and he was spewing lies, hatred, and all this stuff. And he had such a huge viewership. Let me go back. Let me see if I can get that for you. Let me see. His father something. Oh, I can't find that for you now, but there was during the Guild, I forgot his name. He was spew hate and had a huge Sunday viewership. People always turned in, they wanted to hear these lies about it. It drew that emotion. Okay, so he was a lifelong conspiracy theorist, and little by little he pounced on the internet age, and he created this site Infowars, all junk. Infowars is all junk. Please don't believe anything on there. A lot of people do. I don't know. And it spreads a lot of hate. Let's go back. Let's see what's on Infowars today. Anyone want to click on this site? NATO is planning to proceed with planned nuclear exercises this week. Russia is a big thing for Infowars. They love to put it to raise up Putin in a weird way. Putin for them exemplifies this sort of white narrative of making it into the world and being against the West and being against others. Let's see. What else they got here? A lot of junk on here. It's pay attention to this thing here. And there's a lot of podcasts that go into a lot of more conspiracy theories. People love podcasts. People just love to like and it's a good thing, right? But it's a platform for these type of people to grow and to exploit. People driving, stuck in traffic, they can listen to this podcast. Yeah, blah blah blah. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So in 2018, after all the lies that he had, Apple, Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube all banned Jones' company after years of backlash, after years of calling for this, because he threatened somebody, and took down many of its recorded broadcasts in the summer of 2018. When this happened, Alex Jones was furious. He was calling for free speech. Was my First Amendment right? Blah blah blah. But that didn't even stop him. His company's recorded a revenue of 64.9 million last year, up from about 53 million in annual revenue as of 2018. They said Infowars Records and Jones, his net worth is highest $270 million. And how did they get this money? So he's currently in a lawsuit with the Sandy Hook victims, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But during the trial, they did a forensic analysis of his accounting analysis and found where all his money was and how much he was worth. So Alex Jones, not for nothing, when we talk about these conspiracy theorist people, we think that they're dumb because they're spewing dumb things. There's a quote that I love that says, smart people know what smart people want. Geniuses know what dumb people want. And he figured out, not even, and if you go to the thing about his site, you know, if you go to any traditional news site, you see banners, ads, and things like that on sites, right? Here, he doesn't have anything because he's selling these pills. He figured out he could get people to buy these pills, and it deals again with eliciting that emotional response. If they believe all he says, then why wouldn't they believe that these pills he's selling are a miracle? So here's a quote from I think it's a New Yorker article, or what is it? Yeah, New York Mag article. This is a brilliant business model. If you can be convinced that an international cabal of globalists is hell-bent on creating a new world order, perhaps you could be persuaded to buy. These are actual things he sells. InfoWars Life Survival Shield X2, a 1 fluid ounce bottle of iodine supplement for 40. If you can be convinced that Barack Obama was a member of Al Qaeda, perhaps we will buy 2 ounces of InfoWar Life Super Male Vitality Drops for $59.99. He makes millions of dollars selling these fake things, fake Viagra and all that stuff. Because if they're going to believe you with these fake bogus news, why not believe in something that you can make money from? And it's a smart idea, right? So remember, going back to that movie, fake news is spurred by hate. And most of InfoWars devotees are white males who hate minorities, who hate the LGBTQA community, and they want to go back to a white nationalist state. They're scared of the change this country is going through, and they're preparing for a war. They swear that a war is happening. There are these people who are buying all these guns. It's basically like a zombie apocalypse thing. They're just waiting for the world to pop off, and they're ready. They got the little like army brigades in their neighborhoods, and when martial law comes into effect, they're ready to overthrow the government. So did I have that here? Alex Jones, what happened to him? Let me see. Sorry, I'm just going to go ahead in these slides. So what happened to Alex Jones? He has to pay $900 million, almost $1 billion to the Sandy Hook family. Why? Oh, actually, that was the link that I wanted to show you, but I wanted to show you the comments in it. So he spewed this lie that Sandy Hook was a false flag operation. Every time there's a mass shooting, these conspiracy theorists always say, this is a false flag. They're doing this. These are crisis actors, and they're doing this to revoke our gun rights, where we want to have our guns. Let's promote the Second Amendment. And it was so bad. Actually, in the trial, they found that they got his data. He tried to hide his data. Remember, data is so important. We'll learn about that in the future class. Data is everything. And nowadays. And they found that anytime he spoke about this Sandy Hook thing, his engagement went through the roof, meaning more clicks, more money, and more pills he could sell. He spewed this lie. These were crisis actors, that the kids didn't die. They're somewhere else, that the parents were lying to do this false flag, that they were paid. And what happened, the parents were harassed. Imagine that your children die. Imagine that your little brother or sister is killed in a mass shooting. And after you're grieving about that, you have to deal with people showing up to your house, placing bomb threats, threatening to kick your you know what, because you're trying to take away the Second Amendment rights. It was insane what happened. And I wanted to show you one of the comments here. Let me see here. I don't necessarily want to shout him out and show his name. So let's just do this. Honestly, let's read it. This is the actual sentiment. If you read the comments on any news site, you'll see people talking like this all the time. Honestly, the morons continue getting their news from CNN, News 12, etc. They'll have no clue what's coming for them in their little bubble they create in their mind, where they'll always be safe. The banks will never crash. They'll always have fully stocked shelves. Most of them have no idea we're in the middle of World War III. Let them fade when it hits home. They're not prepared. And these people are stocking guns. They have the little militias and things like that. They're ready for Armageddon. They see this as an opportunity for them to reclaim the white nationalist ideology. And a quote from the media and a quote from that guy's comment is, we don't trust the corporate media. We all know people like this. I have friends that says, I don't trust the corporate media. So what media do you trust? Out of all the media that you should trust, You should trust the ones that have uphold ethical values. And is InfoWars not a corporate media? They're making millions of dollars off. They're basically a corporation selling their own pills. Isn't that a corporate media? It doesn't make any sense. So one of the things that he raised was this fake news. I mean, sorry, this free speech. I have free speech. I can say what I want. This is the First Amendment right country. No, you can't. In essence, yes, you can, but there are limits. So the first thing is called defamation, and in defamation, you can sue somebody for talking bad about you. And there's two types of defamation. There's libel and slander, and one basically is dealing if the defamation was written in a newspaper or spoken about in this is old age where they did like newspapers and TV. One is for spoken and one is for written, but now it goes to the internet. So he got for both because he had the website and he had the podcast. And let's see what's this link here. Oh, this is the steps to prove defamation. So to prove defamation, you must show 4 things: that he was putting forth a false statement for a fact. He was publication to a third person. He had negligence, and it caused some harm to people. So you can't do that. You can't if it hurts your character. Remember the movie Pizzagate? If that pizza shop got closed down because Alex Jones, and the guy said, "Hey, you lost my livelihood. I could sue you." If one of my students, what if I failed one of my students and one of my students called me, child pornographer, blah blah blah, all this stuff, and I lost my job, I could sue them for defamation because it caused me harm. I could say a lot of the times these cases say monetary harm, right? Like, oh, I lost my job. How can I do anything now? This was fake. It also does emotional distress, like, oh, I have to go to therapy and I need money, stuff like that to pay for that therapy. Another thing that's crazy about free speech, you can't incite fighting words. This is a real thing. If it's likely to incite immediate violence, it can be censored. So if you're gonna incite a riot, your free speech doesn't count. Obscenity, free speech, you can't just put any porno anywhere. Obscenity rule was because of kids. They don't want to put, porno magazine started in the 70s and parents were up in arms. They also enact about the internet, which passed in 2001. So you can't just put anything. Yes, free speech, we can say what a lot, as opposed to other countries where you're censored, you're taken to jail. You say anything about the government, you're screwed. In this country, we have the right to say F Biden or F Trump or I love them. If you in another country and you say that F the Nicolas Maduro or F the Iran supreme leader, you're going to jail. So we do have free speech in this country, but there is limits, and I think for the best. Moving on, let's go back to the economy of the fake news cycle. So this is from a 2016 Washington Post story. There were 2 graduates, and actually one ran for local office. They had advertising degrees and a business degree. They were best friends, but they were kind of like losers. If you read the story, they would just stay home. They couldn't find jobs. They were skateboarding and stuff like that. They only could find unpaid internships and were working at a Mexican restaurant. So they figured out, hey, we can make money by doing this fake news. So they would literally, the article just shows them in their living room on their couch, like messy house, like just like, hey, what are we going to think of now? Here's a headline he wrote: Proof, North Korea experiments on humans. They published a story and made $120 off of 10 minutes, in 10 minutes. Here's what he said: you have to trick people into reading the news. These people know what they're doing. It's for financial gain or political gain. The 2-person site operating at a house in San Francisco Bay Area, they generated income of between $10,000 and $40,000 a month, only from bank ads at the side of every story. They also paid $3,000 to Facebook to boost their posts and double the views. 95% of their views came from Facebook. So if you didn't know, if you have a business on Facebook, you can actually pay them and it boosts up to show your profile above everybody else's and recommend it. And it's a cycle, right? The more clicks you get, the more ad money you get. So the more sensationalist, the more people want to click on it and see it, then you get more money. So we're not only profiteering, but we're swaying elections. you saw that thing in the movie where that guy was tired of Republicans doing the fake news. So he did this like really bogus thing where he said the Republican candidate was for a dry county or something. And the person on the Democrat won by 20,000 votes. And he measured the reach. This is from the actual movie. He said, I saw that my engagement, because remember, data is all online. Back in the day, when you ran an ad on TV or you placed it in the newspaper, you never really knew how many people were looking at that. You had a rough estimate. Online, you have all the numbers. He said out of 1 million people that looked at it, even 1% were outraged and didn't vote, then that 1% was like enough to sway the election. This has always happened. People always wanted to sway the election. Who are the undecided voters? Who can we flip? But now we can do it better online. We can do psychoanalytics. We can see what are the biggest issues in that community. Who can we sway? What we can lie about, and we can basically move the election over. And if you look up the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which we'll see in a movie next week about Facebook, you'll see how they were able to do that. And they stole the data from the app, and they first were involved in a local election. I think it was with Ted Cruz, and then were involved in the 2016 election. So this is just like how we got our news in the morning. Like, how many of you in this class wake up and pick up the paper and read the paper? Maybe like 1 or 2 of you. How many of you do the thing on the side? You're not even fully out of bed. You still got some boogers in your eyes, and you're over here reading the news. I do it all the time. I just did it before I recorded this lecture. So people enjoy sharing information. We tend to consume, but we tend to assume information is always accurate, true, complete, and current, which we have to do our homework. And like I said, it's getting harder than ever. Sometimes I would say like 90% of the time, it just takes a quick Google search to figure out this is fake. A poll found that 44% of Americans got news from Facebook in 2016. And fake news mills have taken advantage of capitalize on conservative-leaning conspiracy theories getting clicks on Facebook and Google. How many times have you had to tell an older relative, like, that's not true, grandma, that's just on Facebook? But many older people think that Facebook, everything they post on Facebook is true. And what is Facebook's right and responsibility to take that down? Should they? Or even would they if they had to? So both sides promote fake news and conspiracies. Is not just Republicans, Democrats, not just left or right. Everybody does it now. Maybe one does it more than the other. There's also false articles that stated the Pope endorsed Bernie Sanders. Never happened. From the film, the Dem organization that skewed the local election. Oh, we spoke about that already. Social media companies. You have to understand social media companies' role in spreading misinformation and fake news. The one thing that controls the world, money, dollar bills. So money rules everything, right? They make money off of this, the engagement. They make billions, millions of dollars off the fake news because more people are sharing it, clicking it. Every click is worth money. And under Section 230 of the Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, they're not liable for what users post. Basically, when they drew up the laws of the internet, Bill Clinton and Congress, they basically said, hey, Zuckerberg, Zuckerberg can't be sued for anything anybody posts on Facebook. It's a third party. And this has sort of controlled the internet in the USA for the last 20 years, but more like 15 when things have heated up with social media. But now there's a challenge to Section 230. Let's see what it is here. It gets a little crazy here. What's the actual lawsuit? Give me 1 second here. So they said that Supreme Court is going to hear this case. Oh, sorry, it's right on top. That social media platforms may be sued for the false news they perpetrated for what the users post on the site. And if this passes, this has huge implications for the internet age, and there'll be a lot more control of what people are posting on these sites. You see a lot more clampdown. If they were liable and had to pay money, there'd be a lot more moderation. So how are we combating the spread of fake news on these social media platforms? Germany will find companies where hateful and harmful posts are not removed within 24 hours. The German government. France is trying to enact the same thing. Trump was removed from Twitter. They said he violated all the rules and policies, inciting violence and things like that. So people always claim free speech, but remember, social media is not part of the government. It's a company owned. It kind of morphed into this public good, but in essence, it's a corporation. And now we have Elon Musk, who's about to take over Twitter and saying he wants to bring these people back. So think about it. Are you pro letting anybody say what they want, or are you against it? And think about the huge audience behind Trump and all the things that he says. There's millions of dollars involved, millions of clicks, billions of clicks. And somebody who just wants to profit off of it, yeah. But should he be able to incite violence and say the wrong things? No. So Trump actually, after being banned from all social media sites, he created his own social media site called none other than Truth Social. And it got like, I think 190, it got tons of downloads in the first day that it was launched. But it could not be placed on app stores. So they have to go through a rigorous process that says we're going to include moderation and not promote this hatred. Where the whole app is basically that. And now it was barred from the Google Play Store, but just the other day it was recently approved for the App Store, and the company invested in this company had to go through a process and prove that it was just moderating it. Let's see here real quick. Close some of these things here. Recently, Facebook said it would ban all Holocaust denial and ban all news of election winners until the election is called. As we'll see next week, Facebook has a huge sway in elections, both foreign and local. And they decided, after much backlash, after hearings with the US Congress, that they were going to wait to say who was the winner until the winner was actually called. They were going to stop the spread of fake news. Instagram has started blocking certain posts. You can actually report a post on Instagram now, fake news. But the social media companies need to act. They need to get it together. They won't. They make tons of money off clicks and engagement. And as long as it's profiteering, it's gonna keep going. If you go further into it, and we see with the movie when Zuckerberg was called into office and stuff like that, he basically said there's nothing we can do. There's something you can do. Think about all the limits that Facebook puts on you, and the control they have over you. They can do something. So that's basically it for the lesson on fake news and misinformation and things like that. We'll again talk more about this later in the semester. I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you soon.